We are always told to use the past as a rear view mirror, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, sure, you check it to see where you've been.
Or just make sure you don't, back into a brick wall.
Right. But if you stare to that rear view mirror for too long, if you just obsess over every single pothole and bump in the road behind you,
You are absolutely going to crash into the future.
you're going to crash. Welcome, learner. We're skipping the small talk today because we have a massive question to untangle in this deep dive.
A big one.
It really is. We're asking, are we actually learning from our past to build an innovative future? Or, and this is the scary part, are we secretly weaponizing our own history to trap ourselves in a cycle of old fears?
And that tension, that exact question, is really the core of what we are unpacking today.
Yeah.
We're looking at some incredible source material that breaks down cognitive frameworks, some highly practical parenting strategies, and really the underlying philosophy of how we process our own personal history.
Yeah.
It totally challenges the fundamental way we think about the phrase learning a lesson.
It does. And I want to get right into that rear view mirror problem we just mentioned, because I think the default assumption for most of us is that learning from the past is just, I don't know, it's just simple math.
Simple math. How so?
Like you review what happened, you extract the lesson, and you alter your behavior. If X caused pain, don't do X. It feels like a very clean, logical equation.
Right, yeah. I mean, I definitely wouldn't call it simple math, though. When you look at the sources, it's actually much closer to faulty wiring.
Faulty wiring.
Yeah. Human psychology takes that pristine, logical idea of learning a lesson and just completely twists it. Instead of creating a rational mechanism for growth, we routinely turn the past into like a projector for our regrets and our anxieties.
Wow, a projector for our regrets.
Exactly. And the material points out that when we look backward, we're usually generating one of two very distinct types of futures.
Okay, so let's lay out that fork in the road for the listener. Path one is what the sources call the liberated future, right?
Yes. And this is the ideal state. You look at your historical data, so your successes, your failures, the weird little detours you took, and you use it to actively break restrictive thinking.
So you're not judging it.
No, not at all. The goal here is true innovation. You establish a brand new objective that is completely unattached to your old baggage. You're just using the past as raw data to figure out what is possible now rather than letting it dictate what is impossible.
Okay, so it's clean, objective data gathering. That makes sense. But then we have path two.
Right, path two.
A constrained future. And this is a future entirely bound by the things we feared, the things we worried about, or the things we flat out failed at in the past. It's totally anchored by conditioning.
Yeah, it's a trap.
It is. And what really stood out to me in the reading is how this happens generationally. You see older generations looking at their own past struggles and then just laying down these absolute rigid rules for the next generation. Like, you must do this or you can never, ever do that.
And the tragedy there is that they do this genuinely believing they are helping. Right. They are operating from a place of perceived lack or past deficiency. So they think they are offering this great shortcut to success. But what they are actually doing is placing a really heavy limitation on the future. They're taking their own past constraints and just enforcing them as the operating system for someone else's life.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to challenge this a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Because isn't being cautious based on past mistakes isn't it just survival?
What do you mean?
Like, if I touched a hot stove in the past and I use that memory to tell my kid, hey, don't touch the hot stove, I'm not constraining their future. I'm keeping them from getting third-degree burns.
Right.
So how do we know? When does a valuable lesson cross the line and become this fear trap?
Well, the mechanism of a constrained future is far more insidious than a hot stove. The crucial differentiator, the sources point out here, is self-awareness.
Self-aware?
Yeah. It all hinges on how critically you evaluate the data. You have to ask yourself, did that past experience give me actionable objective knowledge, or did it just install a rigid restriction on what I'm willing to attempt?
Oh, I see. So it is the difference between I know how to handle a kitchen stove safely now versus I will never enter a kitchen again because stoves exist and stoves are dangerous.
Precisely. Yeah, exactly that. If you lack the deep self-awareness to see what the past actually handed you, whether it was true, adaptable knowledge or just a lingering emotional shackle, you will blindly enforce those shackles on the future.
That's wow.
You will build a constrained future for yourself or your children without even realizing you were doing it.
Okay. That difference sounds really profound in theory. But the ultimate stress test for this usually happens around age 17, right?
Oh, yeah. The college applications.
Yes. When decades of parental baggage just collide with university applications. The research actually grounds us in a perfect laboratory. A father helping his daughter navigate her college choices. This is where the theory just smashes into reality.
It really is, because college applications are this incredibly high-stress environment. A student's entire historical data set is crashing directly into a massive decision about the future.
Yeah.
And what is brilliant about this father's approach in the source material is actually what he refused to do.
Yeah.
He didn't sit his daughter down and dictate a major based on the current job market.
Right.
He didn't impose a constrained future. Instead, he utilized a corporate quality control loop.
Yes, the PDCA cycle. Plan, do, check, act.
Exactly.
And I want to pause on that because applying a corporate management framework to a teenager's emotional journey of self-discovery sounds, it sounds incredibly intense, right? Maybe even a little robotic. How does that actually work in this context?
I know it sounds robotic at first, but until you look at the mechanics of it, you don't realize how incredibly clarifying it is.
Oh.
The plan phase wasn't about planning to get into a prestigious school.
Okay.
The plan was establishing the goal. Let's find out what you are naturally built to do. So, to execute the do and check phases, he asked her to conduct an exhaustive audit of her entire academic history.
Right, and we are not just talking about high school transcripts here.
No.
Yeah.
He asked her to look all the way back to kindergarten.
Which is a massive and, frankly, kind of weird data set. I mean, why kindergarten? What is a 17-year-old supposed to learn from? Like finger painting grades?
Because kindergarten data is incredibly pure. Yeah, it represents the baseline hardware of the child, right? Before all the heavy software of societal conditioning and parental expectations gets installed.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. So we asked her to comb through that entire timeline and identify two very specific metrics. First, what did she naturally do smoothly? Like, where did high achievement intersect with low effort? And second, what activities gave her the greatest internal sense of achievement?
Smoothness. I absolutely love that metric. Not what pays the most or what looks best on a college application.
Exactly.
So she is essentially laying out a decade of report cards and projects and hobbies and extracurriculars on the kitchen table and just looking for patterns. She is gathering objective data about herself.
She is actively building the liberated future. And notice the mechanism here. She isn't searching her history for fears to avoid.
Right.
She isn't looking for past embarrassments to run away from. She is rationally mapping out her competence and her joy. The ultimate goal of the parent in this scenario wasn't just to, secure an admission letter.
It was bigger than that.
Much bigger. The goal was to equip her with her own rational problem-solving system so she could function entirely independently when she left home.
I mean, that is the absolute dream scenario for mentoring or parenting. But, and this is the heartbreaking part of the source material, while she is rationally mapping out this liberated future, she is watching her classmates live a vastly different reality.
Yeah, they're struggling.
They are dealing with extreme, unyielding demands from their parents. And there is one striking example in the research that literally physically hurt to read.
Yes, the contrast is stark.
So there is a classmate who absolutely loves drawing and art. They have a clear, demonstrable passion for it, but their math skills are just completely unacceptable. They are terrible at math.
Right.
Yet despite this glaring reality, the parents are forcefully demanding that this student apply exclusively for electrical engineering or computer science.
It is a textbook manifestation of a constrained future.
It's baffling. It's like trying to run high-end video editing software on a kitchen toaster just because video editors make a lot of money.
That's a great way to put it.
The hardware, like the kid's natural aptitude, literally cannot process the kind the parents are trying to install. And the terrible math grades are objective data, right there on the table. How can parents completely ignore the data in front of them?
Well, because the parents are not looking at the child's data.
They aren't.
No, they're looking at their own. When you dig into the psychological mechanisms at play here, which the source material does beautifully, you see that these irrational demands are almost always born from a sense of lack or regret in the parent's own youth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes, they might cite the job market or starting salaries to justify it to the kid, but underneath that, it is about their own unresolved history.
So they are reacting to their own historical baggage, not the kid's current reality.
Exactly. The parent might have, say, lacked financial security growing up, or maybe they felt they missed an opportunity for social status, or they failed to achieve a certain professional tier.
Right.
So what they do is they attempt to essentially fix their own past, by forcing the child to fulfill that unachieved goal.
Wow, the child's future literally becomes a band-aid for the parent's past.
That is precisely how the mechanism works. The child's natural abilities, like drawing, they become completely irrelevant because the parent's unhealed past is driving the bus.
Right.
The parent's internal fear of, you won't have money or you won't be respected completely overwrites the objective reality that the kid is going to fail out of a computer science program because they literally cannot do the calculus.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate danger of a future suffocated by the past. The parent's lack of self-awareness completely crushes the child's potential for an authentic life.
That is terrifying. And it doesn't stop at age 18 either. You see bosses do this to employees. You see mentors do this to mentees.
Oh, all the time.
So how do we actually solve this? How do you break the deadlock when someone in a position of power is trying to force their constrained future onto you? Because the father, in our scenario, didn't just tell his daughter to pat her friend on the back and say, wow, your parents are projecting.
No. He offered a highly tactical solution.
Which was our...
He advised his daughter to teach her struggling friend the exact same rational PDCA framework she had just used. He understood a fundamental rule of conflict. You cannot fight an emotional demand with more emotion.
That is so true.
Right? If the friend just goes to their parents and cries, but I want to do art, the parents are simply going to push back harder with their fear-based logic about money and stability.
Because fear always thinks it is being completely reasonable.
Always. So the advice was to help the friend logically figure out what they actually want, in this case, art or music, and then use the PDCA method to build a structured, evidence-based argument for it. Take the raw emotion out of the equation entirely.
I love that. It's elevating the conversation. So instead of a screaming match, it becomes a presentation of facts. Like, here is my documented history of success in art. Here's my documented history of struggling in math. Here's my actionable plan to turn art into a viable path, complete with portfolio requirements and career trajectories.
Yes. And there is a specific phrase in Mandarin used in the research to describe this exact state. It's jushi lunshi.
Okay, and what does that mean exactly?
It translates roughly to discussing the matter strictly on its own merits.
Discussing the matter strictly on its own merits.
Right. By utilizing this rational method, the child returns to the parents with a clear, logical platform for communication. It completely removes the dense fog of the parents' projected regrets and creates a neutral space governed by objective facts.
And for you listening right now, maybe you are well past applying to college, but think about your annual performance review.
Oh, perfect example.
Right. When your boss tells you that you absolutely must take a management track, even though you love being an individual contributor just because that is what they did to succeed, they are projecting their permanence onto your future. This PDCA framework, this Jushi Lingxi concept, is exactly how you push back without starting a war. It is your shield against someone else's historical baggage.
Yes. And bridging this into the workplace perfectly highlights the profound philosophical underpinning of all of this material. If we zoom out from college applications and performance reviews, what we are really analyzing is the tension between change and permanence.
Okay.
In the original text, this is referred to as bian, ye jian, yen, bu bian.
I want to make sure we conceptualize those terms properly because they sound very abstract. How does permanence operate as a mechanism in our minds?
Permanence, in this psychological context, is rigidity. It is not stability. It is an inability to move.
Interesting.
When a parent forces a child down a specific path because of their own past fears, that is a form of permanence. The text refers to it as a xenion.
Xenion.
Yes. An attachment, a stubbornness, or an obsession. It is a complete refusal to adapt to present reality because your brain is frozen in a defensive posture by a past experience.
So it's like the tightening of control when you actually feel totally out of control.
Exactly.
It means true growth requires us to process our own history so it doesn't harden into this toxic permanence. We have to deal with our unresolved issues so we don't accidentally weaponize them against ourselves or our kids or our employees.
Yes. That is the core insight.
Yeah.
You process the past so you are not doomed to inflict it on others. And breaking that permanence allows you to achieve the ideal state, which the philosophy defines as change.
But we aren't talking about chaotic change, right?
No, not at all. We aren't talking about chaotic, unpredictable change. We are talking about adaptable evolution. It means being responsive to your current environment, acknowledging the actual data sitting right in front of you, like a kid who loves art and hates math, and allowing for true, unburdened growth.
Yeah.
You are no longer anchored by an obsessive rigidity from the past. You are finally free to evolve.
Let's bring all of this together. We started with a seemingly simple idea of looking at the past as a rearview mirror to understand the future.
Right.
But we uncovered the massive hidden danger there. The ease with which we can build a constrained future entirely out of old fears and projected regrets. We saw the mechanics of how this plays out in the real world, the tragedy of forcing a brilliant artist into a computer science degree just to soothe a parent's unresolved anxieties. But, most importantly, we broke down the antidote.
The antidote is the rational framework. It is the willingness to look at your past objectively, catalog your actual baseline strengths, and use that pure data to build a liberated future.
Building that deep self-awareness and deploying logical frameworks like PDCA really is the key to ensuring your past experiences act as a compass to guide you, rather than a heavy anchor dragging you straight to the bottom.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to examine in your own life.
Lay it on us.
Take a look at the biggest, most practical goal you are striving for right now. Look at it closely. Is it truly your own innovative vision for your future? Or is it just a clever disguise for an old fear or someone else's unresolved regret?
Keep questioning those assumptions, learner. Keep checking that rearview mirror to see where you've been. But whatever you do, keep your eyes on the road ahead. We will catch you on the next deep dive.